Hi BookTube, and welcome to a new video. This is a tag video. This is the Cryptid Book Tag. That's Cryptid, not Cryptic. And I first saw it over on Jason Byways in Bookland's channel, but it was originated by the BookTube machine, that is Steve Donoghue. So, the cryptid is a mystery animal whose fans say it definitely could exist. How do you deal with books recommended to you by their fervent true believers? Well, I pull down my helm of cynicism and I pick up my 20-sided dice and roll it and crack open page 1, and I maintain independence of mind and make up my own mind. I tend not to read hot button books or books that are all the rage while that furore is going on. I tend to let it simmer down a little and, as I say, then dive in and make up my own mind. Prompt 2. Cryptozoology is typically mocked as a pseudoscience pursued by charlatans and scientific illiterates, and yet it's oddly fun to investigate. Name a non-cryptology kind of book that's likewise fun, though deeply, deeply flawed. Well, look no further than one of my favourite authors, Jarett Kobek, I Hate the Internet, which you've probably heard of because it was a sensation, and Only Americans Burn in Hell, which is his latest book, which is far less of a sensation because basically he couldn't get it published in America, I think on the back of this, because both of these books are basically Jarett Kobek's sort of gags and satire about America, race, politics, gender, digital gurus, San Francisco tech, all that kind of stuff. And they are supremely funny, supremely entertaining, very sharp as well, very insightful, but they're not novels. There's no story, there's no plot, there's no characters, despite his sort of vague attempts at installing characters. They're not. There are a lot of very funny and clever one-liners or sort of riff rants. Highly recommended, but don't pick them up if you're expecting fully developed plots and characters with arcs. Prompt 3. Cryptid Water-Monsters, a favourite water-related book. Well, I was unsure about this because there are very few books I have which have water-based animals in them. There's lots of books set in and around water. So, for example, Scala Thomas, who's one of my favourite authors, her latest novel last year was called Oligarchy, and it's set in an all-female boarding school, set in grounds, which has a lake in there, and there's all sort of historical mystery surrounding that lake, and the lake becomes a focal point for the resolution of the action. But no sort of creatures live in that lake. Same thing really, The Bird Tribunal by Agnes Lethem, Norwegian author. This book was given to me by two Norwegian booktubers, Silja and Elizabeth at Bookish North, when they came over to London a couple of years ago. And they said Ratvan is one of their favourite authors, and she normally, this book was a bit different for her. It's a tale of a young woman who's on the run from her, whatever her background is, and she sort of seeks sanctuary by going to work as a sort of maid come housekeeper for this sort of reclusive male. It's not clear what he does, and gradually they sort of physically and intimately come closer and closer together. And then it all sort of explodes, and they're in a rowing boat that he's built out on the lake, and that's where the climax of this novel happens. But again, it's not about any animals that live in that water. What have we got here? Oh yeah, Life of Pi. So, well, you all know about Life of Pi. It takes place on the high seas. And finally, John Barth, coming soon. John Barth, who's very much a sort of American postmodern writer. This is set aboard a showboat, which those sort of mobile entertainment arenas sort of have fallen out of fashion in the modern world. But this is a book loosely based around the concept of reviving one of them and trying to make it marketable. So I hope that answers the question about sort of favourite water-related book. It's not really anything to do with sort of water monsters. Prompt 4. Cryptid Dog-Monster, a favourite book about a dog or a dog-like creature. Well, I have two, although I'm only in possession of one. Jeff Noon, Vurt, and other of his books like Pollen, they have sort of roaming gangs of gene-spliced boys who are called the dog boys, because the genetic mix that they've opted for involves dog DNA spliced with human. So that, you know, there's a lot of them abounding in Jeff Noon's work. The other one I don't have, because it succumbed to my mould outbreak last year, is Victor Pelevin's Diary of a Werewolf. I'm assuming we're counting wolves as dog-like creatures. That's a mighty fine book. And also, the other main character in that book is a female fox, and foxes are definitely part of the dog family, I'm sure. Prompt 5, Cryptid Biped-Monsters, a favourite book featuring a hominid who isn't Homo sapiens. Well, I've gone with Stephen Scherell's The Minotaur Takes a Cigarette Break, and this is a Minotaur. The original Greek Minotaur, who is transported into the modern world, has managed to survive all that time by trying to blend in as much as possible with humanity, and occasionally he gets discovered and has to move on. And this book finds the Minotaur as employed as a short order chef, and it's a very good read. I don't know if Steve Scherell's written anything else of value. This is the only one of his I've read, but highly enjoyable. 6, Cryptid Avian Monsters, a favourite book featuring a bird. Well, I only finished this a couple of weeks ago. It's Deb Olin Umferth's latest book called Barn 8, and it's all about chickens and a sort of environmental action to liberate a whole sort of battery farm of chickens. Very entertaining it is too, and definitely, although they're not really flying birds because of the way we hold them in captivity, chickens definitely rate as birds. Next one, 7, Cryptid Cat Monster, a favourite book featuring a cat. Extra points if the cat is terrifyingly enormous. Well, of course, Life of Pi could have come into that because it has a tiger, as you can see from the cover. And another book has a similar status tiger, which is Jonathan Letham's Chronic City, which is his story about New York. And the tiger is spotted all over New York and, you know, sort of devouring things. It's sort of larger than life, and it devours sort of whole buildings and stuff, sort of demolishes them in its wake. And in a way, similar to that, it holds a sort of more significant symbolic value than the actual tigerness of the tiger. So they're sort of quite related in that sense. 8. Are you in fact a cryptid? Give yourself 1 point for each yes. So here is a list of features of cryptids. 1. Are you often met by disbelief or even horror by those who encounter you? I don't encounter many people, so it's kind of hard to know, but I assume yes would be the answer. 2. Are there people in the world who consider you mostly or entirely mythical? Yes, I should think everyone considers me entirely mythical because they very rarely catch a glimpse of me. A bit like Bigfoot or Yeti or whatever. 3. Is there anything about you that science finds puzzling? Well, we don't know. I shall donate my brain to science on my death, and they can cut it open and they can see about whether the ravages of 40 years of insomnia have changed my brain chemistry. They can find, or hopefully they can find, where someone who didn't read a serious book until he was 14 has come by A, a love of writing, fiction, and B, a love of words and vocabulary and wordplay. Is there a genetic component of that? Because one of my sons, who also, I have twin boys. One is a reader, the other does not read at all, and yet he too has prodigious vocabulary. So maybe there is a genetic component to that. Be interesting to see. So scientists can have fun with that. Next one, in your natural state, do you typically emit odd noises or odours? Well, the point about odours is you can't smell your own body odour, so we don't know. You'd have to ask others for evidence of that. Do I emit odd noises? I do if I'm singing along to the songs I play. Next one, are you an evolutionary dead end scorned by the modern world? Absolutely. Last one, do you occasionally exhibit near human levels of intelligence? Again, not really for me to say. Okay, so that's the tag. Thanks to both Jason and to Steve D. Till next time.